So we're nearly ready for the final video of this section where we'll be making a hilarious sound effects app. But before we do that, we're going to learn a couple of new ways to interact with the device, specifically swipes and shakes. So I'll save that as usual on the desktop. And we'll be working completely in viewcontroller.swift here. We don't need any actual user interface at all. So first off, to detect a shake, there is a method that we can use called motion ended. There it is. And this detects a number of types of motion of the phone. And specifically, we're going to look for the shake motion. And we can detect that by looking at this event variable. So we can use event.subtype, and event is an optional. So we're just checking here if event.subtype is equal to UI event subtype dot motion shake. And you can see we've got a few other UI events which are all to do with remote control. So we'll focus on the shake motion. And then simply we can use device was shaken and just print that to the console. So let's have a look and see that in action. You may be wondering how I'm going to shake my device. Well, fortunately, we can provide a shake gesture from the hardware menu there. I don't have to actually shake my computer. And here we go. So let's click hardware and shake gesture. And there you go. You can see device was shaken. So you could do whatever you wanted as the result of a shake in that bit of the code. So that's shaking. Let's see how we can work with swipes. Well, this one we're going to start in view.didLoad, and we're going to create a variable called swipe right, which is going to be a UI swipe gesture recognizer. So just like the long press gesture recognizer that we worked with a few videos ago. And the target is going to be the view controller or self. And the action is going to be a selector again. And I'll just create the selector itself, or the method. So I'll call this swiped. And just like with the long press recognizer, this is going to receive a gesture of a type UI gesture recognizer. And now that we've got that, we can go back to our selector and select view controller dot swiped. And it's going to pass on the data because of that colon there as well. So at the moment that will just detect a swipe. If we want to detect specifically a swipe to the right, then we set swipe right direction to be equal to UI swipe gesture recognizer direction dot right. Simple as that. And then we can add it to any UI element that we've got. We don't have any UI elements, so I'm just going to add it to the view, which is the whole screen. So we'll add a gesture recognizer, and the gesture recognizer we're going to add is swipe right. Okay, very quick challenge for you then. Can you create a swipe left gesture recognizer? Go for it. Okay, hope you managed it. It is, of course, very similar to what we have here, so I'm going to call it swipe left. It's a UI swipe gesture recognizer without the direction. And then I use the predictor this time. So the target is the view controller or self, and the selector is going to be exactly the same. So view controller dot swiped, and then we set the direction again. So it's going to be as before, UI swipe gesture recognizer direction dot left, and finally we add it to the view. Swipe left. Okay. And then all we need to do over here in the swipe method is work out which swipe was done, because both of these methods call gesture. So we need to work out from the gesture variable what sort of a swipe it was. So first off, we need to convert the UI gesture recognizer into a UI swipe gesture recognizer. So we'll attempt to cast it. So if let swipe gesture is equal to gesture as, and then UI swipe gesture recognizer. So we know it will be because there are only two methods that can call this swiped method, and they are both swipes. But it's always good to check, just in case this method could be caused by a different type of gesture, and again, that would cause a crash in your app if it did. And then we're going to use a new type of Swift construct here, the switch, which is really just a way of doing a bunch of if statements a little bit more neatly. So what we do with a switch is we look at the variable that we're interested in. So in this case, it's swipe gesture dot direction. And then we have a number of different cases. So one possibility is that the direction is right, which would be UI swipe gesture recognizer direction dot right. If swipe gesture dot direction is equal to UI swipe gesture recognizer direction dot right, then do something, and we'll just print user swiped right. Our next case is that UI swipe gesture recognizer direction left is equal to swipe gesture direction, and if that's the case, we'll have user swiped left. And finally, with all switches you need a default case, which is essentially what to do if neither of those is true. And that thing to do is simply break, which breaks out of the switch and ends the process. So really, a switch is just a way of doing a number of if statements in a slightly neater manner. All right, let's give it a try. So we should now be able to swipe left and right and get a result in the console. And here we go. So let's give it a try. I'm going to swipe left just by clicking and dragging. And there we go. User swipe left. And if I swipe right, we get that result there. So there we go. It's quite easy to extend that to swiping up and down, of course. So feel free to play around with that. But we're going to stop the swipes and shakes there and move on to our final app of this section, which is one I particularly enjoy, called Sound Shaker.